evening, viewers, and welcome to the program Political Scope. My name is Stacey Carmichael James. With me this evening is Minister of Legal Affairs and Attorney General, the Honorable Anil Nandalal. Today we will be discussing some pertinent issues of importance to the nation. Good evening, Minister, and it's a pleasure having you on Political Scope this evening.
Thank you very much.
And today we want to examine certain aspects of the President's New Year's message, where he alluded to many investments that the PPC government will be moving forward with in 2015. Would you like to expound on one of the important aspects that he spoke about, the US $65 million investment for the development of roads and other supporting infrastructure across the country?
Well, to begin with, the President's address ought to be looked at from a holistic perspective. It seeks to outline a plan which is a continuation of a developmental trajectory started under this administration several years ago, and the going forward of this plan towards the attainment of set objectives. 2015 is a link in that chain. The president, for example, would have spoke about the consistency of economic growth over the last 9 years. He would have spoken about the stability of our dollar, the fact that we were able to keep inflation rate in single digit figures, the fact that interest rates and so on at the bank have been quite stable. All of these are sound macroeconomic factors that we have worked hard to achieve. And once we have these mechanisms in place, then we can move forward to advance the developmental trajectory of our country. And it is in that context that the president's speech ought to be situated, in my respectful view. Roadways, for example, he spoke about several kilometers of modern highway, which will commence construction in the year 2015. That is no different from what has been going on in the previous years. As I said, it's a continuation of a chain of developmental projects, building the physical infrastructure of our country, having achieved the important macroeconomic stability. We now have to look at the other aspects of development. So the linking of roadways is a significant step in that direction. You would know that there are construction going on the road from Georgetown to Timeri. A 4-lane highway is under construction there. Another 4-lane highway is under construction on the east coast of Demerara, from Georgetown to Golden Grove, I think. And then on the west coast of Demerara, another 4-lane highway from Breeden Hoop to somewhere in Parika. Earmarked also is going to be the East Bank Berbice roadway that is badly in need of construction. So that is an important aspect of development in terms of building the infrastructure of our country. We know the importance of making available quick access from place of production to market and having modern roadways for the country. So the president also spoke, for example, about the bridging of the Quarantine River. He spoke about a highway to Brazil. He spoke about the possibility of the new modern deepwater harbor at the mouth of the Berbice River. Now, these are significant transformational projects. They may not all materialize in 2015. Their materialization may come beyond 2015, but 2015 is the year where the foundational works will begin. Work indeed has already commenced in at Quarantine, at Crabwood Creek, where the bridge across the Quarantine River is expected to fall. A memorandum of understanding and so on exists between the government and a consortium in Brazil in relation to the construction of the road from Latem to Linden, and then from Linden we have to determine how you move to reach the Deepwater Harbor, because the intention is to provide a deepwater harbor and to access to the Atlantic Ocean to Brazil. For years now we have been speaking about south to south trade and south south development, and for years we have recognized that that is where we have to go. Brazil is the fifth largest economy in the world. Brazil is part of BRICS. This is a new financial entity that is expected to make a major impact on the conventional financial international landscape, where the centers of financial power resided among a few nations. You have now countries that were hitherto third world countries that have graduated and now are able to hold their own in an international financial environment and are able to establish institutions alternative to the conventional institutions to which we have become accustomed, with a particular emphasis to assist third world countries. So we have to ensure that we are ready and qualified to access the type of assistance, and we have to be prepared to enter into the type of trade relations with these countries. A bridge across the Quarantine River, for example, will link Cayenne, Paramaribo, Naikiri. They are already linked. Now Berbice. The road will take you to Brazil, and the link continues beyond. Now, that must be an impetus for economic transformation in this part of the world, in particular with Guyana being almost at the center of this physical link that is being created. Of course, we enjoy the advantage of being the only English-speaking territory in South America. So the president's speech addresses this grand vision of where we are going. And it is important that we have a roadmap of that type. The mind can only achieve what it conceives. If you aim for the stars, you may land on the moon. So you have to think big. You may not be able to achieve everything within the time you would have liked or within the time you may have anticipated. But at least we have to have the vision to move in that direction. And that is the philosophy that informs the construction of a new airport, the construction of an international hotel, the Marriott, the construction of a modern medical hospital at Turkine. This is the type of philosophy, and that is how we are thinking, because it is long recognized that we can't continue depending upon three or four industry for our survival as a country and for our development. We may survive, but do we want to always be in the economic and financial position that we are in now? And that is why we have to continue to lay the base and basis for movement, a paradigm movement forward in terms of production, and that will require the building of infrastructure and other structures that will make that developmental paradigm conducive. We have to move away from this heavy reliance on sugar and at least sugar in the form in which we are producing. And we have to move our production, type of production, almost right across our industrial sector to more processing, refining, value added, because currently we are only primary based producer. And we have to have that paradigm shift taking place. So that is what the several projects to which the president made reference are intended and are designed for the type of developmental thrust that I am speaking about.
Okay, thank you for that. And before we move off of development, the president also restated the importance of the Amilo Falls hydropower project towards the economic development of Guyana. Could you add something more to that?
No country in the world that has the ambition to achieve first-class status for its citizens can continue to place reliance on fossil fuel for the generation of power in that country. I know that there has been a decline, for example, in the price of fuel internationally. And that's good. But that cannot be the basis for the reduction of the significance of hydropower to the developmental equation of our country. Hydropower and every source of power alternative to fossil fuel is essential in today's world from every conceivable perspective. One, from an environmental perspective, from an economic perspective, in terms of the fluctuating and highly unpredictable fluctuation of the price of fuel internationally, the amount of fuel that is available in the world. All these are factors that conduce to the conclusion that reliance on fossil fuel as the source of generation of electricity for a country cannot be the modern way to go. And Guyana perhaps is the last country to have recognized this. Throughout the Caribbean, small countries like Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Kitts, they have hydropower. Where a waterfall does not exist, one is created to ensure that there is an elevated level from which water falls to move the turbine. We are gifted with perhaps the best potential for hydropower in the region, having regard to the number of waterfalls that we have in our country. And therefore, hydropower is indispensable to the developmental equation of our country. And hence the president reiterating that despite the opposition's rejection of the Amira Falls project, government is continuing to persevere with making that project a reality. Up to now, the opposition has not, well, the combined opposition have not intelligently outlined to the Guyanese people what problems they have with this project. They said they want more information. What more information do they want when we gave them every single document that was available? Documents that we were ought we ought to have kept in certain degree of confidence. We disclosed it to the opposition. Technical data, information, all were disclosed. They met with the financier, the IADB. They met with the company that came here to build the project, the Blackstone Group. Yet, the IADB was convinced that the project is feasible. This is an international financial institution that would have persons who are highly qualified to study the feasibility of projects. And they were funding it because they thought that it was feasible. At the end of the day, they are a money-making institution. And they will not invest their money into a project that they are not convinced will yield the type of returns that they are looking for. And they were so satisfied. But we have people in the National Assembly here forming the opposition of the country, and they said that they are not satisfied. And as a result, they essentially killed the project. But, as I said, we are going to persevere as a government, and the president has reiterated that in his New Year message.
Okay. Now, given all these challenges and all these aspirations of the government, what is the way forward for 2015, given the fact that it's an election year?
Well, we will continue as a government to pursue that path to which I have referred, that path of development, which essentially is designed to deliver a higher quality of life to the people of our country. That is the end result which we are seeking to achieve. Our development is people-driven, people-oriented, people-inspired, and people are the target. And that is why our developmental approach is all-embracing. It touches our children, and the President spoke, for example, at length on the new education bill. And he spoke to the amount of money that we are investing in education. That will continue because the people of our country are our most important and treasured assets. And everything that we are doing, they are all designed, and it's our intention that all the developmental projects and developmental thrust in which we are moving, they are all intended to ultimately, and in the final analysis, they must inure to the benefit of our people in achieving that objective of ours, which is to deliver a higher quality life for the citizens of our country. 2015 will continue that trajectory. There is a significant event that will take place in 2015. And of course, that would be the general elections. Guyanese will get an opportunity to vote once again. We were fortunate as a government and as a party, the People's Progressive Party, to have GCOM listen to our pleas and act upon our pleas to extend one cycle of registration. Thousands of Guyanese have now been placed on the preliminary voters list as a result of this extension. That may not sound important to some people, but it is, because it is giving, more likely than not, persons who have never voted before an opportunity to vote. And that is building upon our fledgling democracy, having regard, and this is important, having regard to the fact that we have come from a history of dictatorship for 28 years. Development cannot take place without democracy. And that is why our economy and every level of our society suffered stagnation for 28 years. Guyanese are privileged to be a people with first-hand experience of the connection between development and democracy. When democracy was returned to this country in 1992, you saw development for the first time after 20-odd years of stagnation. It's not coincidence. There is a causal connection between democracy and development. Any part on planet Earth where there is dictatorship and authoritarianism, there is economic and social stagnation. Because you are denying the human being his God-given right to develop his potential. That is what a dictatorship does. And when the human being is allowed to bloom, the entrepreneurial and aptitudinal ability of that human being is allowed to blossom. He can speak freely. He can work freely. He can work without having a party card. He is given a fair opportunity to compete with others in his country, irrespective of his ethnic and political persuasion. And that is what we have seen from 1992 to now. And that's how we have. And that is the importance of elections. From 2011 to now, because of the results of the 2011 elections, the opposition has controlled the National Assembly. What have they done with this power that they have? This newfound influence that they were given in the National Assembly. What have they done with it? Have they ever used it to exact from the government an undertaking or exact from the government more for the people of this country? Have they done that? They could have easily done that. No. What they have done, they have restricted the government's ability to deliver to the people of this country. I wouldn't mind if you use the power that you have to force the government, if that is what is required, to deliver more. But when you use that newfound power which you have to stifle the government's ability to deliver goods and services to the people of this country, then we have a problem. I have a problem with that. Our government has a problem with that. And that is what has taken place. Cutting of national budget. Who suffers if not the people of this country? All the monies that they cut from the budget, these are monies that when they are spent in the country, we have development that are taking place, jobs created. And then, of course, at the end, you have a project that will yield some service or good for the people of this country. And they chop it down. And look at them, the Amila Falls project, the specialty hospital, and a whole host of projects, including poverty alleviation type projects, specifically targeting the poor people, the poorer people of our country, the less fortunate, the old, the young people, the Amerindians. I speak about the Amerindian Development Fund. I speak about the student loans. I speak about the subsidy to Gaisuku, to GPL, that was intended to reduce people's light bill and fund a reduction for what do you call it, a waiver, I think, for old people, pensioners, and so on. So that is what this opposition have used this new power to do to the people of this country as they pursue their political agendas. They are concerned about getting into government. They figure in their mind, I presume, that to get into government, they must make this government look bad. So they have designed a modus operandi to achieve that objective. And that is prevent the government from delivering goods and service to the people. Let the money stay in the treasury. Don't spend it for the people. The people will eventually turn against the government. And when that happens, we will get an opportunity to slip in to government. That is the modus operandi. And I am hoping that the people of our country are intelligent enough and are wise enough and will make an intelligent choice come elections 2015. Many people may have believed, and many people, I presume, believe that we have been in power for too long, and therefore some other persons should be given a chance. Well, the period of 2011, November, to whenever elections are called in 2015, would have presented an ample opportunity of the capabilities, propensities, proclivities of the persons who will assume government if we are not there. And that is what will happen in this country. So the 2015 elections will determine whether we go forward in the manner that I spoke about at the beginning of this program to achieve the objectives that I spoke about and the President spoke about in his 2015 speech, or whether we are going back to 28 years of dictatorship, of economic stagnation, of violation of people's freedom of expression, and people going to jail for criticizing a government, and shortage of food items. That is because it is the same set of people that are there. The finance minister of that period is the finance spokesperson now for the opposition. And so you don't have to, it's not a new set of people. Of course, they have changed their names in recognition, I suppose, that they must present somewhat of a new face. But that is not going to fool anyone. Their propensities have not changed. Their inclinations have not changed. They behave the same way. They have an opportunity in the parliament. They have an advantage. They bully the government and take over the parliament. And that is how dictators behave. So that is the major choice of that is the major decision for 2015. And the situation for the voter becomes now even clearer because we are seeing publicly unfolding secret talks between the Alliance for Change and the APNU. So there is a merger. We have always said publicly that they are working together. And I have listed on previous programs examples, factual examples, known to everyone, of the two parties coalescing. Their latest effort was the bringing of the no confidence motion against the government. So they are one and the same now, and they are actually speaking about formally merging. Right? They were one and the same all the time, but operating from different poles. Now they are speaking about an amalgamation of the two. So the voter now, I mean, this the choice is not that difficult. You choose progress or you choose regression. And that is what the 2015 elections is about.
Okay. Moving off a bit from that area, there has been what we must say deafening silence on the rape allegations leveled against the Speaker of the National Assembly by a 22-year-old young man.
Is it
The,
rape?
well, those were the allegations.
Okay.
And the latest information we got is that the file was sent from the DPP's office back to the police for further investigations. What this silence by the opposition signals to the Guyanese?
Well, first of all, I know that it's an allegation of some sexual nature. Whether it's rape or not, I'm not sure, but the young man is alleging that he was sexually molested by the Speaker of the National Assembly at a time when he was much younger. Um, as you know, I think it's public record that the Speaker has obtained an injunction preventing the young man from speaking and exposing the brutalities which the young man claims, or the alleged brutalities to which the young man claimed he was subject. So no one can, the young man can't speak anymore. Um, the file I understand was sent to the DPP, and the DPP has advised, has requested some other information from the police, and that's the state of play. But on your question of deafening silence, it's unfortunate, and that's the duplicity and the hypocrisy which are commonplace in our country, unfortunately. Um, you have seen how many of these people have called for my resignation. Um, and I don't, I've issued a statement in relation to that incident in which, I said what I had to say. But yet, every day, there's a statement. And here it is, you have a young man who claims he has been sexually molested by a senior state functionary. And on top of that, he's now gagged from saying what actually took place, what he claims took place. And society is silent. The Red Threads, the Rights of Child Commission, the Help and Shelter, and all the Bar Association, all these persons who would normally be very loud, and the opposition, of course, they are all silent. But when somebody in the government is, implicated in some way, the entire world comes out. I suppose we will evolve at some stage as a people and as a country and recognize that these issues go way beyond politics. They go to the very fabric of our society. And persons would remove from their eyes, I suppose, hopefully, the blinds of politics and in some instances race. Because I have no doubt that race is also a factor in whenever some of these organizations speak. So, I hope that we as a society and as a people will mature beyond this.
Um, as the Attorney General, there was a case put forward by a Partnership for National Unity, Mr. Granger, against the government for what they claim illegal spending. Could you give us an update on that case?
Well, the case is ongoing. The case essentially alleges that the restoration of the monies by the finance minister in the budget that were not approved by the opposition in the National Assembly, that restoration was unlawful. And they are attempting to obtain what is called a conservatory order, restraining the government from spending that money. That money would have been restored for the year 2014, and statements of excess have been prepared by the finance minister as is required by the constitution. One set has been laid already, and one set was to be laid, but for the prorogation of parliament it was not possible. And the way the monies were spent are accounted for in those papers, those financial papers. So I don't know what is there to conserve. The conservatory order seeks to restrain. I can only presume is the spending of those monies. But those monies would have been expended because that is the only way that the statement of excess could have been laid in the assembly. It is where monies have been spent and you are going to the National Assembly, as is required by the Constitution, to lay out to the Assembly the particulars of the money spent. So I believe that it's futile to attempt to ask the court to grant any order when the act, the fact, or the matter to which the order must relate is a matter that has been overtaken by time. A new financial year has begun, and the Constitution outlines how monies are to be spent by a government prior to the budget. That is something we have been doing since independence. The Constitution says how it is to be done. There is no court that can direct the government how monies must be spent. The Constitution, along with the Fiscal Amendment, the Financial Management and Accountability Act, the two documents, two pieces of law, the Constitution and that statute, creates a formula of how monies are to be spent. And that is the formula that we have been using since the Constitution was brought into force, even under the PNC government, I would presume. No court can tell you otherwise. And it has nothing to do with prorogation, assuming that Parliament was in session. It was the same formula that you are to use, because it is what the Constitution and the law prescribe must be done before a budget is passed. So that is how monies are going to be expended from now until budget is passed. So I don't understand why there is a need for a court action. The court action is a complete waste of time, unnecessary, and but it has been filed, and I have been named a defendant, and the Minister of Finance is also named a defendant, and therefore it's my duty and responsibility to defend it. And we are defending it. But really, it's, I believe, a complete waste of time.
Okay. Before we wrap up this program, Professor Thomas, he has spoken about Guyana being a criminalized state. What is your response as the Attorney General to this accusation?
The state of Guyana is made up of many organs. You have state apparatus that are established by the Constitution. For example, you have the judiciary, you have the executive, you have the parliament, you have the defense arm of the state. You have, and that's the police force, the army. Then you have the financial arm of the state. You have the central bank. And these are all statutory agencies. You have the central bank. You have a whole host of regulatory agencies that regulate this apparatus called the state. And together they create one amalgam that's called the state of Guyana. You have all the agencies, all the statutory agencies, the Guyana Revenue Authority, the um, the Guyana Power and Light. It's by an act of parliament. They're all state agencies. You have all the state agencies. You have the Guyana Gold Board, the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission. You have, and I can continue to list them. And that is what is made up of the state of Guyana. And that is what Mr. Professor Thomas, Clive Thomas, I think, right? He said that? He's saying that all these people are criminals. That the judiciary, all the judges are criminals. I suppose all the magistrates are criminals. At least, some of them. The parliament, the speaker, the leader of the opposition, he's a member of, he's an organ in the state. All the opposition parliamentarians. And his party, WPA, is in alliance with. They have members of parliament sitting there. Dr. Rupnarayan, all these people are criminal. The commissioner of police, the head of the army, the head of the revenue arm of the state, these are all state apparatus. The governor of the central bank, the Geology and Mines Commission, the people who regulate the water sector, the Lands and Surveys Division as a land regulatory body in the state. All these, according to Dr. Thomas, all these people are criminals. That's what I understand. I don't know. There's no definition of what he's speaking about. But if I am to go by my understanding of what the state is, and if you're saying that there's a criminalization of the state, it means that the occupants of these offices, the army, the police commissioner, the judiciary, the speaker, I suppose the president, the attorney general, the leader of the opposition, is a pack of criminals. And I think he always says that the economy is driven by proceeds of crime. So all these companies that are manufacturing, Banks DIH, DDL, all the stores on Regent Street, all the people who are working hard in the fields, the rice farmers, the sugar workers, the public servants, all these people who are taking loans and building their homes and taking loans and opening new businesses and so on, in the commercial sector, in the financial sector, in the industrial sector, in the agricultural sector, the development that is taking place in those sectors, Professor Thomas, I think, and many of his ilk, attributed to criminal proceeds of crime. So all these people apparently are engaged, according to these commentators, in criminal activities. And what we are seeing are only fronts, because that's the argument. All these companies that we are seeing around and the businesses, the new banks that are opening throughout the country and so on, they are only fronts. The real activity of these business persons are basically something illicit. That is the theory, that is the argument.
Any closing remarks, Attorney General?
I think that 2015 rather, is going to be a very important year. The most significant event in the year, of course, at least on the political calendar and on the national calendar, will be the holding of national elections. We have a history in this country of racial and ethnic sensitivities rising during this period, and sometimes, unfortunately, exacerbated, exploited, and excited by politicians. I would hope that this year that will not happen. We also have a history of violence surrounding and following elections. I hope that that will not happen this year. We have a history of protest actions, civil disorder, unlawful marches, and so on. I hope that that does not happen this year. And I sincerely hope that the Guyanese population will turn out to vote, that's the first thing, and will make the right decision.
Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us on the program Political Scope, and I do look forward to having another interview with you soon, Minister.
Thank you.
Thank you, viewers, for joining us on Political Scope. My name is Stacey Carmichael James, saying have a good evening.